And so hear me that message, right? I carry a gun every day. I'm really good with it. And at the very least, if somebody kills me, they're going to go, God, that guy was hard to kill. Okay? I am not going to go home to Jesus and he go, hey, where was your gun, dummy? Okay? That's not going to happen to me. But I want to use these soft skills first, all right? Today's video is brought to us by Mantis. The Mantis family of products is integral to ASP staff building handgun and carbine skills and are your most economical and fastest path to improvement in your skills too. Whether you choose the X10, the Laser Academy, the Blackbeard, or use them all in concert, they will help your practice be more effective, efficient, and fun. Go check them out, pick up a unit, and thank them for sponsoring today's video. So we want to talk about that. I want to also give you some books to think about because you should be reading. Okay, some good books for study. If you have not read How to Win Friends and Influence People in the last 5 years, you are wrong and you should fix yourself. Okay? You are wrong and you should fix yourself. Yes, by all means, get your camera out and take a snap. Again, Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People is the #1 de-escalation strategies book in the world. And this is not gimmicks. This is about how to treat people nice and to stay out of fights. You should absolutely read this book. It was originally written long ago, and then they updated it a little while, and then they updated it last, I think, in the 80s, and so the examples are kind of cheesy 80s examples, and it makes it super nostalgic for me as a child of the 80s. I think you absolutely should read the book Verbal Judo by Thompson and Jenkins. Okay? That book, Verbal Judo, fantastic on how to have verbal skills to stay out of fights. Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss is sneaky applicable. It's about negotiations. He was a FBI negotiator and a negotiator in hostage situations for the FBI for 25 years. But this book is about verbal skills and how to de-escalate folks. It's really fantastic. And the book Influence by Robert Cialdini. What will happen when you read this book is all the advertisements that are served to you every day, you will start deciphering advertising messages. And you'll start going, oh, that's what they're selling. And you go, that's not selling beer. That's selling if I buy their beer, I get to look like that guy and have sex with her. And then I go, no, I won't. They're lying to me. So Influence. This is a really fantastic book. And also the good part of Influence is it will show you the social cues that people use to try to manipulate you and how to not be manipulated in those ways. Really fantastic stuff, okay? So, we got a lot to cover here, and I've got 75 minutes, so let's get to it. First of all, I really want you to think about an appropriate response rather than when we talk about how do I de-escalate someone. So I get this question all the time. Well, John, when my child gets all pent up, how do I de-escalate them? You cannot de-escalate someone. They can de-escalate themselves. You can open doors for them, but you can't de-escalate every conflict by a long shot. We're going to see several of them on video here, people who will not be de-escalated, and they cannot be. So I'm not telling you that this will always work. An imminent deadly threat you have to deal with immediately. So somebody pulls a gun and points it in your face, it's not time for, hey man, it looks like you're having a bad day. Can we talk about this for a moment? Okay? Now, you might need in an armed robbery purposeful compliance to get yourself to a place to end that threat effectively, but an imminent deadly threat needs to be dealt with not with de-escalation techniques, but with a lethal response at the earliest opportunity. An imminent physical threat must be dealt with immediately. Now, I tell these folks that the easy one that probably most people can relate to on this, if you have a dog that is running up to you with its hackles up and its teeth bared, and it's coming hard, is that the time to go, it's okay, Fluffy? No, it's not. That's the time that I'm going to have to kick Fluffy as hard as I can and try to keep Fluffy from chewing on me. Now, if instead Fluffy is not actively advancing on me and I'm standing there and all of a sudden Fluffy is standing there with the teeth bared and the hackles up and growling at me, that might be the time for, good boy, let's be friends. Let me back up very slowly. Here's a cookie. Right? So we can then work on something. So there's a time and a place for the appropriate response. A non-imminent or brewing threat is an opportunity for de-escalation strategies. Okay? So when de-escalation strategies are appropriate is not when somebody's pulled a knife on you, not when somebody's pulled a gun on you, not when somebody is trying to punch you in the face. That's a time for other skills. But when you have time, You got to have some strategies to do that. I want to set some realistic goals here too, okay? Number one, first and foremost, you cannot de-escalate anyone. They have a definitive role to play. You cannot de-escalate anyone. And if you go in thinking, well, if I just say exactly the right thing, then that will make this happen in the correct way. Do you know what we call that? Manipulative behavior. And anybody who grew up in a home with a narcissist, if you grew up with anybody in a home with a cluster B personality disorder, I hear that from these people all the time. Well, we knew in the house that if dad got amped up or dad was upset that things would go bad, so we learned how to say exactly the right things to keep dad from getting mad so he wouldn't blow up. And if you experienced that growing up, I'm very sorry. I would strongly recommend therapeutic input. I really would, and I'm not joking there at all. But you can't de-escalate folks. It's one of the things we actually have to deprogram folks. They're responsible for their internal response, and you cannot be responsible for how somebody receives things. You can be responsible for how you encode them and for opening doors for them in healthy ways. So when I talk about de-escalation strategies here, what I'm really talking about, what we're going to actually dive into, we're going to get into the inner parts of us a little bit. We're going to get a little mushy-gushy. You're going to be like, oh no, John's talking about my feels, and I don't want to talk about feels. Hey man, if you're not emotionally healthy yourself, you will really struggle to de-escalate anybody else. If you feel like you maybe kind of deserve it, you'll struggle with this. So we're going to have to get there some. So again, they have a definitive role. Your goal must be, when possible, to open pathways for them to more easily choose to regulate their own behavior and their own thinking. And this necessarily involves maximizing discretionary time. Now, what do we talk about discretionary time? There's emergency time and discretionary time. So I think about police officer encounters, right? So if the cops get called to a scene and someone's amped up, they come to a domestic. Happens all the time. And you've probably seen a badge cam, a cop showing up to a domestic, and then they just run right in and super badge heavy and just start hooking people up. You ever seen one of those? Cop comes in, says, hey, you, calm down. Come here, I'm putting you in cuffs and throwing you on the ground. Rawr. Instead of going, okay, what's going on here? How are you? So if I maintain a little bit of space and time, then I have discretion of what I can do. But in an emergency, I don't have any discretionary time. I have to act in definitive ways. So I want to maximize my discretionary time to allow some opportunity. And our ultimate aim is to resolve the situation we're in with the minimum force necessary to achieve a satisfactory end. Minimum use of force possible. And I know I'm here at the NRA annual meetings, and people are like, John, we don't get a whole lot of messaging about using the minimum amount of force necessary at the largest firearms organization in the world. That's not generally what we talk about here. That's why I'm here. And again, I'm a gun dude. I'm a Second Amendment absolutist. I believe all people have the right to keep and bear arms, not just Americans. And the people who don't think like us, they actually have the right to keep and bear arms too. And I also think we should avoid fights at every opportunity. And I think being a good, sane, sober, moral, prudent person means I try to live in community in a way that I use the minimum amount of force possible. So I don't like talking politics a whole lot. My company has one political position, okay? And that's that the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, of course, me as an individual, I have plenty of them, and I'm kind of a wackadoodle libertarian. I just want to live in peace with people. And I don't care what you do, and I don't care how you want to live. I just want to live in peace. Can we be friends? Good. And I don't want to force you to do nothing. And I do not want you to force me to do nothing. I just want to live as friends. And if we can get along and we have some common ground and we want to go to have a meal together or do some business together, great. And that's what a life of de-escalation is, okay?